It is a beautiful day to apply some logic and confess the truth. I'm Megan Steele, and this is Confessions of a School Nurse.
Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. I have quite the treat for you today as we dive deep into the Trevor Project. But I kind of want to get a few things out first. One, this is going to be a really long podcast with a lot of details. And so I am dividing it up into two different episodes. So be sure that you watch both of them because the second one you're not going to want to miss. I promise you that. I would also like to say that I do not hate those that have mental health disorders and identify as someone in the pronoun alphabet. These are humans, and these people need to be loved and treated respectfully and with empathy. It's like the old saying goes, don't hate the person, hate the sin, and that's exactly how I feel. Secondly, I will not apologize for standing up and speaking the truth to protect our children. Children are vulnerable and they must be protected. When adults are shoving pornography, human trafficking, pedophilia, grooming, and any other unimaginable evil at our children, I will stand guard. I do not want to get to the gates of heaven and God look at me square in the eyes and say, "Sorry, Megan, to hell you go, because you did not stand against evil." Not to stand is to stand, and not to act is to act. I started Confessions of a School Nurse because I have witnessed firsthand the horrific fallout from those not standing and speaking the truth. I'm so glad that you're here listening with me today because I know I'm not alone. And together we can make a strong fight for our children. All right. Now that all that's out of the way, let's get started. Got that out of the way, I want to jump straight into the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project, this is one of the most widely used platforms that children and teenagers are using to seek help. I have to be honest, I think the Trevor Project really did start with good intentions, and they had a good idea of helping lost souls. The mission of the Trevor Project is to end suicide among gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning young people. The Trevor Project only uses the pronoun alphabet LGBTQ. They have not, as of June 22nd, added any of the other letters to this pronoun alphabet. They have just stayed with the LGBTQ. I find that quite interesting. Um, their vision is to always be the world's largest, best in class provider of suicide prevention and crisis intervention services for the LGBTQ youth, and to serve as a leading voice in education, advocacy, and research related to LGBTQ youth and mental health. They attempt to do this through their 5 key programs, which includes crisis services, peer support, research, education, and public awareness. And then their last one is advocacy. So this sounds really good, right? Like they have a good idea to help lost souls. Here's a little history on how the Trevor Project began. It was really started in 1994. There were 2 producers by the names of Peggy Roshsky, I'm sure I said that wrong, and Randy Stone. They created this short one-man show called Word of Mouth, and this show examined the life of Trevor. Trevor was a high school boy. He realized he is homosexual and faces prejudice from his parents and friends. They eventually decided to make this one-man small show into a short film. And this film actually won prestigious awards, including the Academy Award for a Best Live Action Short Film, and it's won an Oscar. And when it won these awards, it launched into a national movement. And during this movement, Peggy, one of the producers, discovered there was really no place for young people like Trevor to turn when facing challenges. So she quickly recruited mental health experts and figured out how to build the infrastructure necessary for a nationwide 24-hour crisis line. I mean, this sounds really good, right? Like they really want to care for the youth that are struggling. And I just really feel like they started out for a good cause, because it is true that children that question their identity have a higher rate of mental health issues and disorders. And it is true that they have a higher rate of suicide. The Trevor Project conducted a national survey of mental health, and they published that in the February of this year. And their statistics report that 46% of LGBTQ youth aged 13 to 17 have considered suicide this past year, and 17% of those have actually attempted suicide. I'm not sure how many were successful of that 17%, but that is way too big of a percent regardless. This survey also discovered that transgendered boys have the highest rate of suicide, and those that identify as pansexual or questioning have higher rates than those that are cisgendered. 67% report they experience symptoms of anxiety, and 54% report symptoms of depression. So obviously, we have a crisis here. These children need real help. But when you dive into the Trevor Project, they are providing an outlet that causes confusion and chaos and supports children in their mental delusions, rather than speaking the help and providing the real help and therapy that these children need. These counselors that children can talk to are literally volunteers from any background of life. And guess what? You know how they get to become a counselor? They receive 40 hours of virtual training in LGBTQ situations. Yeah, I'm not so sure about you, but I don't want to be receiving counseling, let alone have my child receive counseling from someone with only 40 hours of training. It doesn't matter what college degree you have, whether you have one or not, how old it doesn't matter. You have to be 18. I should take that back. But you can just take their 40-hour training and be a volunteer. Pretty scary, huh? Per their website that states, you'll be connected to a Trevor counselor who is understanding of LGBTQ issues and won't judge you. All of your messages are anonymous, and you can share as much or as little as you like. Sounds like a lot of, logic applied here. All right, prepped with this knowledge and, a little bit of a background of the transgender page here, I decided that I would engage in a chat conversation. And it went a little bit like this. I clicked on the box that said I wanted to chat with a counselor, and I said that I feel like a boy. And then a counselor came on and asked what I wanted to be called. I said that my name was Megan and that I didn't have a boy name yet. This counselor, I don't know if it was a boy, a girl, a Z, a Zim, a him, a nim. I don't know. I'm just referring to this person as a counselor. They asked how old I was. I said that I was 17. Then the counselor asked me about the city and state that I live in so appropriate resources could be provided. Complete side note here, there was no resource given in my area of Kansas. Not one. The only resource given was resources on Trevor Project as well as Trevor Space, which I'll cover more in just a little bit. The counselor then asked how I was feeling. I said that I was feeling weird, to which the counselor then asked how I feel when I'm a boy. And I said good, but that my parents would be mad if I came out. The counselor then said, and I quote, "It sounds like your parents present a tough situation because they are not supportive. How do you feel about just exploring your identity in private for now while you figure it out? That way you don't have to worry about your parents." Y'all, I can't make this stuff up. The counselor literally just told this child to keep being a boy and to hide it from her family. Her parents are the problem and to stay away. And let's also acknowledge that this person is engaging with a minor. hmm The conversation continues. I said I was tired of hiding, that is why I was reaching out. And the counselor then asked if I was thinking of killing myself, to which I said no. So we'll fast forward a bit in the conversation, and it shifted to a friend of mine that recently came out. And the counselor asked if one of my parents would be supportive. And I said no. I said that they did not like my friend being homosexual. And the counselor then said, and I quote, "Since they're not accepting of your friend, I'm wondering, would you have a backup plan or somewhere or someone you could go to if things went south when you told them?" I then asked the question, "Is it okay to be a boy?" And Jess responded, "It is totally okay to be a boy. You deserve to feel validated and supported in your identity." I then asked, "Why do I feel weird?" And the counselor says, and I quote, "It's totally normal to feel weird. This is a big change, and I can see how confusing it could be. How do you feel about talking to your friend more and maybe doing some research to try to figure this all out?" And then she points me to Trevor's space. And then I ended the conversation because I could not handle the fact that somebody was potentially talking to a child, telling them that their delusions are true, hide it from your parents, and use our website for resources. Like, it just blew my mind. This was supposedly supposed to be a trained counselor. So she not only affirmed delusions, she essentially, he, she, whatever, drove a wedge into the family by telling me to conceal information from my parents. I just thought it was creepy, and I'm an adult, so I worry about children. So because I couldn't just do it one time, I needed to do it more because that's what children do, right? Like, they don't just get one affirmation and not get more. So on June 16th, I had a few friends that were just as flabbergasted as I was about the first chat, and they said they would assist me in this chat. So, let me just say, it is so sad and so funny to watch grown women gathered around a computer trying to apply logic to evil. That said, the conversation started by asking my name. I said my girl name was Brittany, and the counselor again asked where I was chatting from and how old I was. I really feel like this is just for data collection. Like, my research brain is telling me this is to collect data, but it is so creepy and inappropriate at the same time. And in reality, I'm not telling the truth. So are kids telling the truth or not? That's up for debate. So I'm not so sure how skewed their data collection is here. But I said I was 16 and that I lived in Kansas, and that I had just told my parents that I wanted to be a girl, and they were, quote, pissed off. I figured maybe if I used a little bit of angry language, it might make them take a little more drastic measure. I don't know if pissed is necessarily bad language, but the point is, the counselor then asked how that made me feel, and I said I was pissed again. The counselor asked what the conversation was like, and we decided that we would tell this uh, counselor that I told my parents at supper, and that I didn't want to be Matthew anymore, that I wanted to be Brittany, and they yelled at me and told me I was crazy. To which the counselor said, and I quote, "You're definitely not crazy, Brittany. I imagine it must have felt frustrating and disheartening to have them react that way." As a side note, the council had a few misspellings in the chat, and that just made me laugh. But it also made me feel like it wasn't a robot or an AI bot, that it actually was a person, because there were so many misspellings. Anyways, we began to shift the conversation to the suicide issue, since that is the mission of the Treasure Project. I said that my parents told me to leave the house and that I did not feel safe and that the suicide had crossed my mind. So the counselor then said, "How are you thinking of killing yourself?" And at this point, my friends and I, we just like paused and stared at each other. Like, like what are you supposed to say? So I literally just said IDK because I really didn't know. Then the counselor states, "Have you done anything today to kill yourself?" Well, no, because I'm talking to you. But we said no. The counselor then asks, "When are you thinking of killing yourself?" So at this point, we just again stared at the computer in complete silence. In complete silence. I get that if you want to find out if someone has a plan, that means they really truly are in active suicide mode and need help. But dang, just drag someone who is delusional and confused into thinking suicide is okay because that's how it made me feel. So I can only imagine how that made a delusional child feel. And as we sat and contemplated what to say next and really how to like end this conversation because it was uncomfortable, we said that if I'm not here, that I can be Brittany in the afterlife. Because, let's see what happens then. So the counselor then again asked when I was going to go kill myself. We said I was just pissed and that my parents wouldn't accept me. The conversation continued for a bit more, but it was really just like the counselor trying to gear me towards Trevor's space, which I'll talk about again here in a minute. But the counselor said a few times that they were here to listen and give resources, but no resources were given except for Trevor's space. The counselor affirmed that I deserve to be my authentic self and that the counselor was here as a means of support because everybody deserves that. We then ended the conversation because I just couldn't handle the idea that someone made me feel like suicide was okay. It was really scary. So if you have children, please, please, please block this website on their electronic devices. Even if you think that they're too young for this, that they don't know what it's about, block it. Just block this on their device. I also want to encourage you to talk to your administrators and your fellow teachers and your school nurses. Have your IT system block this website at your school. This project is a danger to children. Since I had two different Trevor Project counselors direct me to Trevor Space, I decided that maybe I should check it out. So I had to create a profile. And I'm not that creative, so I had to enlist some help of some friends again. Trevor Space is essentially a Facebook, Instagram chat room for young people ages 13 to 24. Let me repeat those ages 13 to 24. Under most state laws, 13-year-olds are considered children, and under most state laws, teens under the age of 17 cannot give consent. So, right off the bat, this was frightening me. This is a great place for groomers and abusers to hang out. It was also so incredibly easy to create an account, which makes me um, terrified. Because if my friends and I can easily do it, horrific creeps, criminals, pedophiles, human traffickers, and all other kinds of evil people can do it. There was absolutely no verification on who I was as a person or what my intentions were. And as a parent, this should be utterly terrifying to you. I've had my account for over 2 weeks now, and I've not once been asked on verification information. The only thing they did was verify my email address. That's it. It was so easy to just make it all up and fake it. This is just horrific for kids who are truly struggling with mental health. But there is so much to Trevor Space, and I really hope that I don't cause confusion because there is so much new vocabulary and the questions that were asked. I just need to let you know that my friends and I had to use a dictionary. We are well educated women and we had to use a dictionary. So let that sink in. They begin with gender identity. So like when you create a Facebook or Instagram or Twitter profile and it asks for your basic information, right? So you put in your username, your name, where you live. But then it specifically starts asking these questions, and it wanted to know my gender identity. And then it listed 13 different options. I mean, logically speaking, we know, right? There's two: male, female. In the beginning, God created man and woman. But when logic is not applied, apparently there's 13 different genders. And so they are agender, boy, man, gender fluid, gender non-conforming, gender queer, girl woman, non-binary, questioning, third gender, transgender, two spirit, no label, and you're not sure, so you can type in whatever you want. Reading this just makes me laugh, and again, it makes me just feel so sad for people to have such mental delusions to believe all of this. I don't have time to really go through what all of these definitions are because we would be here for hours. And so I did create another video to discuss this terminology. And I also have created a dictionary on my website, confessionsofaschoolnurse.com. There is a dictionary on my website, confessionsofaschoolnurse.com, for you to use because I really feel that as a parent, a teacher, an administrator, a nurse, it is important that you know the language that the students are using. You cannot engage in conversation and speak truth if you don't know what they are talking about. So it is important to know their terminology. So go visit my website, confessionsofaschoolnurse.com. Go ahead and pick up one of our plaques, the do not apply logic plaques, because let me tell you, going through that dictionary, you'll want to like hit yourself in the head with it because it's just so ridiculous. But for fun of my profile person, we said that I was questioning. And then we have our gender identity. Now we're moving into gender pronouns. So are you ready for this? He, him, hers, she, her, hers, they, them, theirs, its, zers, that's an XI, zers, that's a ZE, my name, any pronouns or other to which you can just fill in. So for fun, again, we selected zers, which after using the Urban Dictionary, we learned it means a gender-neutral third person. Again, don't apply logic. I know there's two, but there is this gender-neutral third person. And then just to be fun, we added ne, nim, near, because they are also gender neutral pronouns, because heavens forbid we can only have one set of gender neutral pronouns. Are you confused yet? Like it's just astonishing, isn't it? I mean, it gets worse. It gets worse though, I promise you. So now we have our gender identity, we have our gender pronouns, and we get to move into our relationship status. Here we go. Single, dating multiple people, dating exclusively, dating, it's complicated, it sure is, in a relationship, in an open relationship, in a poly relationship, in a committed relationship, engaged, in a civil union. I'm sorry, I can't even say it without laughing. In a civil union, in a domestic partnership, married, separated, divorced, widowed, or different status, so you can just fill in whatever you want. I can't make it up. It's so terrible. And I just can't help but find the irony in this situation. It is so amusing and profoundly disheartening at the same time, because guess what they move to next? Religious views. Yes, in the middle of all of this gender identity, pronoun, blah, 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 they now want to know what religion you are. I'm not going to list them all because the list was really long, but it included agnostic, Christian, non-denominational, Baptist, etc. And then, boom, right away from religion, it goes into your romantic orientation. Okay, here we go. Aromantic, biromantic, gray romantic, like this is giving me gray hair, but apparently there's gray romantic, demi-romantic, hetero-romantic, homo-romantic, and pan-romantic. Are you perplexed? Because I'm perplexed. Like, I'm so confused. I'm at a complete loss of words. I just don't even know what to say. Who really knows what these words mean? Really? Like, I would love to give this vocabulary quiz or test to students or even potential like 18 plus year olds, because I don't even know if they all would go for that. But we chose demi romantic because it sounded devilish, started with a D. But it really turns out that the definition of demi romantic means that individuals do not experience primary sexual attraction, but they may experience secondary sexual attraction after a close emotional attraction has already formed. Okay, I, I yeah. So essentially, I think that demi-romantic means that if you may not find someone sexually attractive until you get to know them a little bit more, and then you might be sexually attracted to them. I think that's what that means. But I don't know. I have a PhD. I don't know. Um, so moving on into the next question, we're going to talk about sexual orientation. Okay, here we go. Asexual, bisexual, gay, lesbian, pansexual, queer, questioning, straight, no label, not sure, or not listed above. Okay, so that's the end of just the little basic info, because then next you fill in like your favorite movies, your quotes, your books you like to read, your characters you like, and that kind of thing. And I have to say that right off the bat, the fact that I need to know gender identity, gender pronoun, relationship status, religious views, romantic orientation, and sexual orientation, at no point did anyone ask for the truth. At no point did any of those questions ever ask the truth, which is, what gender are you? Not what you identify as, not what you want to be affirmed, but who are you? Right? There's male and there's female, and not one question asked that. It didn't even say what was your gender assigned at birth. So apparently it is just quite evident to avoid the truth and logic. I also have like two other takeaways from this experience of filling out this profile. One is, you have just caused confused children to be even more confused and question even more about the weirdness they feel. Like, I could say my gender identity was a male, but my sexual attraction was to pansexual stuff. Or I could just answer whatever and none of it would ever add up. It was just pure chaos and pure confusion. But I really think that's the way the devil likes it, because confusion disrupts communication, and confusion hampers decision-making processes. You see where this is going? Confusion causes anxiety and depression and stress and diminished learning and growth. Think back to those statistics I gave you. 64% had anxiety and 58% had depression. Hello? Confusion is causing it, and you are causing more confusion in your website. I also noticed that Trevor Space is providing a place for massive potential harm. I am not saying that harm has occurred. What I am saying is that there is a massive potential for harm to occur. And it's going to occur through human trafficking, through pornography, pedophilia, and any other kinds of abuse, and Lord knows what else. Because this was so easy to go in and make something up and lure vulnerable children in. It is heartbreaking. The Trevor Project is creating space for disgusting, horrific people to prey on vulnerable children like vultures on roadkill. And you may think this is harsh, but it is not. Within 2 minutes of my profile being completed, I immediately had someone reaching out to me. It wasn't even completed for 2 minutes. And I could have engaged in conversation with this person for hours. I was being completely fake. How in the world are children whose brains are still developing able to differentiate between what someone says and the pictures they show versus what reality really is? They do not have the ability to do so. So there's more. There's lots more here. The first part of episode 4 has been completed. Go on ahead and click on to part 2.